What's going on? Welcome to the very first episode of the PureCloud Community's Q&A show. I'm your host and community manager, Matt Lawson. And today, have I got a special treat for you. For the first time ever, I will be joined by a PureCloud expert in this live setting to answer your pressing questions in the community. Who is the expert, you might ask? Well, he's nothing short of a community legend in his own right. In fact, he's been tackling the tough questions in the community for over 11 years and bringing you nothing but the biggest hits that we have to offer. You know him. I bet you love him. I know I do. He's one of my favorite people and hopefully yours. I'm talking, of course, about George Ganahl. George, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. From what I understand, you've started a new role at Genesys. You want to talk to us just a little bit about that?
My new primary role is going to be assisting with what I guess we would term enablement for our customer success team. So I'll be helping our customer care teams, the technical account managers and the analysts on the support side, plus the Genesys advisors, all the people that are customer facing, help them understand PureCloud better, give them technical advice, just everything there is to know about the product, because that's been my expertise for a few years now.
Today, to get things started, we are going to kick it off with one of my favorite sessions, and I think it's one of yours also. I'm talking about, of course, Stump the Expert. So George, as you know, how this section works is I'm going to bring up a question in the community that has not been answered previously. And what I want you to do is just kind of give me your base idea of an answer. And you don't have to take a long time, maybe just a minute or so, just to kind of explain it. Today's question comes to us from, I'm going to go with Kosin. Kosin asks, is there a way to mask or not display the incoming number in the agent desktop screen? The idea being to not let the agent see the incoming number. George, what advice do you have?
I saw this question come in. I haven't really had time to do the full research on it. We've gone back and forth a couple of times in PureCloud on what is displayed, but we don't really give much in the way of customizing the standard screen and what information gets displayed to the agent as far as the call information coming in. Usually what it will try to do is take the number and match it up with a city and state. So it'll display city, state information or a contact name, something like that, when the interaction comes in to anyone in the system, especially an agent. But because that information is used so much by the system, we really don't allow anyone to change it on the incoming side. So I'm not positive whether or not we can mask that number coming to an agent. So I might have to go research and play with a little bit and try to figure it out. I know that in Architect, we do have two versions of the number they dialed, but the ANI, the automatic number identification that's used in Architect cannot be changed within Architect. You're stuck with the number that gets sent. So once again, I don't know for sure whether we can mask it. I'd have to go do some research on it.
George, this is one that I think you and I have talked about before. Transfer voice interaction to chat queue. Other than retraining, is there any way to keep an agent from calling or transferring a voice interaction to a chat-only queue? I do not see any way to lock this down to only receive chats and not voice. George, this comes from one of our power contributors, Angelia, or I know Angie is how she also goes. What kind of advice do you have for her?
Really, depending on how the transfers are being done, if it's being done just, I don't know how the transfers are being done here for sure, but I'm presuming there's no phone number assigned or anything like that that they're transferring to. They're just trying to transfer to another flow, another queue. So really, in that case, there's not anything that I know of to prevent somebody from just transferring over to a chat-only queue, since I don't think there's any differentiation at that level to lock things down. Yeah, I couldn't think of a solid way to lock them down in that case.
All right.
And
fine.
the only other thing I can think of is if somebody did transfer a call to a chat-only queue, they'd have to have a flow set up. Well, if they're not transferred to a flow, that doesn't matter. So, no, I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. We wish we could be more helpful. Angie, might have been why your question went unanswered. George, let's just do one more here. We'll make it quick because we're going through these pretty fast right now. Here we go. This last one comes from Substitutions for Canned Responses. The question is from Jonathan, and he says, I have a requirement to include the first name of the customer in canned responses for chat and email interactions. I see that the full customer name is configured out of the box as a substitution, but I haven't found a way to trim off the last name. Is there a way to get just the first name as a substitution? Does it need to be set as participant data on the client side? And is that possible with chat? What do you think, George?
Yeah, I thought I had mentioned something back on this one, but apparently not. But as far as I know, it would need to be done, like it mentions here, as participant data on the client side. So you'd have to build something into the web page to trim it off when generating the chat from the other end. I don't know of any way to have custom substitution fields on that canned response side. You can use, the name as a substitution, but you'd have to pass in something that gets then populated in that name in the format that you want, and do that in the website. As best I can tell.
Okay.
You could also get some ideas for that on developer.mypurecloud.com. Not how to change the canned responses, but how to change the website to pass in the right information.
Cool. Thanks for that suggestion, George. I'll try to link Jonathan to some helpful documents on the developer's site. And Jonathan, apologies for the delay in getting a response out to you. I hate that you had to wait 20 days for that. George, that was Stump the Expert. Thank you for participating. Let's go ahead and just move into our general Q&A section. At this point, George and I have gone through the community and looked at questions that we find particularly interesting. It may be because the discussion was lively, it may be because the question was intriguing, or just in general, it's something that we wanted to discuss. George, this was a question that you wanted to talk about in particular. I know you've already provided an answer, but let's see what we can do. This question comes in from Olivier, and he has a business requirement that he's considering. First thing, it's a question about non-ACD calls. And his question is, I guess I'll just read the whole thing. In the context of a personalization strategy, business is communicating to its customers the direct phone numbers of the agents in charge of specific case management. My business wants to know if the agents are not available, can the direct calls be routed to other agents with the same skill set as the targeted agent? So, the non-ACD calls of PureCloud, is it possible, are they routed to voicemail if the agents are not responding or not available, which may not be an option for my business? Any idea how PureCloud can address this need? George, what advice do you have for Olivier?
When I read this question, the first thing that came to mind was what I actually laid out down below there. But I thought of bullseye routing, which is something that a number of different customers use in similar situations, trying to get a call to a specific agent first, and then if that agent's not available, route it to somebody else, like they said, with the same basic skill set.
Cool.
Bullseye routing is something I can just pop you out a little quick share here. I've got something set up. Hopefully give an idea of what it looks like. So let me share my screen. First off, just a quick look at the resource center, bullseye routing. The concept is you're aiming for the center of a target. So the person we want to get this to is right there in that bullseye, the center ring of our target. If that person's not there, then I'm going to open it up and I'll accept hitting, the second ring. We're almost right at the center of the target, but not quite. We're going to take somebody who's just a little bit outside that very center ring. So you can read up on bullseye routing on the Resource Center. In PureCloud Architect, I've got a flow set up, and this is just a rudimentary bit of a flow where it's going to analyze the call coming in, and based upon the phone number that somebody called, which, as mentioned in the question, we have phone numbers we give out to customers saying, hey, here's your agent for your case. And it's not really the DID for the agent, but it's a phone number that goes into, hopefully, that agent at the center of the bullseye. Call comes in, routes through PureCloud Architect, and we actually look at the phone number based upon using a switch logical action here. So I just look at the phone number that was dialed, and based upon the phone number that was dialed, I'm going to transfer it into an ACD queue that's set up for bullseye, set the skills, and I'm actually going to have one skill per customer. So customer 1, generic, plus 2 other skills, Linux and marketing. Assigns that skill, goes into the ACD routing engine, and here in bullseye routing, I've got 2 rings set up. All my members are in the first ring. Each of these agents has the 2 main skills plus a customer skill. So Cheryl might be customer 1 skill, Deidre customer 2, and so on. So they have 2 similar skills and then 1 individual skill. Call comes in, routes to the queue. If Cheryl is available for customer 1, she'll get the call right away. If she's not available, then it'll actually stay in that bullseye ring for 12 seconds. We're simulating a call timeout, waiting for that agent to come available. If she doesn't, then it will strip off that customer 1 skill, leave the other 2 skills in place, and roll into the second ring, where all of the other agents could now answer that interaction. So I've got, instead of a pool of 1, I've now got a pool of 6 people that could answer that interaction. So it's basically accomplishing what was described in the question. Requires somebody with the 2 main skills, but if we can't get to the main person, it rolls to somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So how would this not meet what Olivier's requirement was?
He talks about handing out the agent's phone number directly. So if some customer thinks they're calling directly to that particular agent, they might actually expect to get the person's voicemail and leave a message if they can't talk to that person right away. And in this particular instance, it's not ever going to leave a voicemail because that's not how we have it set up.
Got it.
I mean, you could add that in eventually in the flow.
Cool. For those of you who have not set up a bullseye routing before or anything like that, George and I did do a deep dive on this topic where we went into a little more detail on what a non-ACD is and how to set up bullseye routing. We'll be sure to set that up as a bonus feature for those of you who are interested. George, I think that's all the time we have for the day. Thank you so much for your participation in these sessions. They mean a lot to me, and I think they mean a lot to the community members as well. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Good.
Good to talk to you.
Awesome. For everybody else who's watching, just know this is the first show that we've done. We're looking forward to doing more. If you're curious how you can participate, well, the answer is pretty simple. Just participate in the community, post discussions, post answers. We are looking for thoughtful replies that you leave, thoughtful questions that you ask. And of course, we're always looking for that content that you upvote or like and just genuinely engage with. That's what we want to talk about on the show, and we look forward to doing more with you. Thank you so much for your time, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Have a good one, everybody.